AEW Unrestricted, the official podcast of All Elite Wrestling. I am Aubrey Edwards, along with my co-host, my BFF, Will Washington. How you doing today, buddy?
Well, I am doing really, really good. It is, we are officially in November, and it's a tough one for me because, like, I'm a big October guy. My birthday's in October. Tony's birthday's in October.
That's right.
It's the best sports month of the year. And
Unless you're a Mariners fan.
I am really sorry about that, by the way.
So here's the thing. Like, I didn't grow up here, so I don't have the heartbreak that many other people have. However, I have learned by being local for 20 years that you just never expect the postseason to be a thing. So it's one of those like, we kind of didn't plan for this in the first place. So going as far as we did, it's okay. It was exciting.
Yeah, but to come as far as you did, like, I don't know. But I do
for another Seattle reference. It feels like a lot like the second Super Bowl that the Seahawks went to, where like we're about to win it, and then we didn't give the ball to Marshawn Lynch. It feels like that.
Look, as a Broncos fan, I don't want to hear about Seattle and Super Bowls because disaster. But anyway, folks, don't forget this podcast, and not just any wrestling podcast. This is a wrestling podcast that is sponsored by Upper Deck, and you can collect your favorite wrestlers in 2025 Upper Deck AEW and start your trading card collection today. Unwrap autograph, memorabilia, and premium tech inserts. Visit upperdeck.com to learn more. Look at this. I got my fancy little pack right here. And for those of you listening on the audio, we got some ASMR here for you.
Ooh, look at that. Look at that.
Yeah.
I just want to shout out the first card in my deck, literally, that I opened, is one of my absolute favorite people. Pentaco.
Sir Pentaco.
Cool? I'm going to have to bring that to work and give it to him because he is like, I've talked about him before. He's super supportive dude, has been so helpful for me in like my learning of Spanish and being able to like help any of the luchadors we have coming in. So like, man, shout out to Sir Pentaco.
Honestly, yeah, Sir Pentaco, look,
hardest working guy backstage.
Yeah, a very hardworking guy. When we talk about, we were just in McAllen, Texas last week, and he actually, the first time we were in McAllen, gave me kind of the skinny on that city and helped me understand that rabid wrestling fan base there. Because man, is it rabid. A card I just pulled, and I want to give this guy a shout out because I think he has been on a tear recently in a way that people didn't understand that he had in him. But Toa Leona, has been so good.
I absolutely love working with him. Like the two of us together, I think just like pair up really, really nicely. And even though, I mean, it's unrestricted, he's a big meanie on screen, but he's one of the nicest guys ever.
So
and
nice.
like his wife is wonderful. His kids are beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, what a fantastic dude. So I am so happy to see like him having the success he has, along with like Ricochet and along with Khan. Like, oh man, so good.
But unfortunately, Ricochet is exactly who everybody thinks he is. So
100%. He's a jerk. He's 100% a jerk. Speaking of another hardworking man in entertainment, I also pulled a Rocky Romero card.
Oh man, yes.
I was joking with him a couple weeks back because I had Kansas City to Mexico City to St. Louis to Seattle to San Antonio back to Mexico to wherever the hell I was to Dallas. And he's like, you got that Rocky Romero schedule going on. And I'm like, yep, I do.
Yeah.
And it dawned on me like how crazy of a load that guy takes on being an executive at 3 separate companies. And I know we've had him on this podcast multiple times. We've talked to him about that being the 4th, 5th, however you count, most important man in professional wrestling. But like, yeah, I think that's one of the great things about having Upper Deck kind of be our sponsor is I'm reminded constantly about how great all of these people we work with are.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I pulled this card. Speaking of guys who aren't exactly the kindest, I mentioned old Ricochet. Also, MJF.
Oh, screw that guy.
Yeah. So
there was a good wedding, but screw him in every other instance.
So yeah, I mean, look, you could collect your favorites, upperdeck.com. Love our sponsors there, and I'm a big trading card guy, honestly. I went and I found a binder of all my old cards at my parents' house just recently, and it just reminded me of how much fun this hobby really is. And if you're a collector, I think AEW and Upper Deck have done a phenomenal job of giving you bang for your buck with these cards.
So on top of that, two others I pulled, and speaking of like the people you work with and all these interpersonal relationships and stuff, I pulled a Beast Mortos and a Mercedes Monet, which if you had told me 6 months ago that those cars would be related, I would not have believed you in the slightest. But now I'm like, oh, that's wonderful. Especially, hold on, this Mercedes one I'm going to point out is the Ring Heroes, and it's also a limited edition one because it says 15 of 25. So there you go.
Yeah, when you think about
thanks for giving me the good stuff.
How AEW has brought people together, that is one of those awesome stories.
Right, like Sky Blue and Kyle Fletcher,
yeah,
Jack Perry and Anna Jay, Julia Hart and Lee Johnson. Like, there's so
honestly, Ruby and
Ruby
Jeff,
and Angelo, yes.
Yep.
Oh my god.
So, it's like, just AEW has when you think about the existence of AEW and the relationships it's brought about, and literally just bringing up Angelo and Ruby, the lives it's brought into the world.
Like, talking about doing like a coffee shop that's like a board game coffee shop that's also wrestling themed. I saw they have a title belt on the wall that has like a meeple in the middle of it. I was just dying. I'm like, as someone who like plays board games at least like a little bit, I was just like, that's a good touch. The meeples champion.
Yeah, very good. Congratulations to those two, by the way, if we haven't gotten to say it enough. So we were talking about McAllen, Texas, and Edinburgh. This is McAllen Airport, so like in my head, it's always McAllen. But recently we had Fright Night Dynamite there last week, and just what a killer show that ended up being from top to bottom. I've always loved how AEW has handled Halloween. Right, when you think about like the first one in 2019, and we crowned the first tag team champions, but then you also had Kenny's really cool entrance, and
that's right, he did the Undertale entrance.
Yeah, he did the Undertale entrance, and so like Halloween in AEW has always been really special. You had Sheeta 2 years ago; she had the Resident Evil with in her Fright Night match, and last year. There was the debut of Bobby Lashley. And so it was like this year, we had to top how we did it. And I think we were extremely successful in how that came about.
Okay, so two things. I'm going to start with like a small one, and then we'll move to the big one that I think both you and I want to talk about. So I love that AEW has been around long enough now that we can have like callbacks. Yes. So seeing the Stay Puft Marshmallow backstage, I'm like, oh, I remember this.
Right. Again, talking about all those Halloween moments, that's a huge one.
Right. And I think it's like, oh, everyone expected Hangman to be in that costume. But no, Hangman was in a completely different costume. Which, okay. So if you didn't watch the show, like one, I don't know why you're listening to this right now because it's filled with spoilers. But Hangman Adam Page dressed up as Tony Schiavone was kind of like, I don't think anyone expected that. So as he's like speaking into the microphone and then does the like long may he reign and starts throwing clotheslines at people, just feeling the crowd like, what is going on? How is Tony Schiavone doing all of this? And then the reveal of no, it's actually him was just so absolutely impeccable. Like hats off to everyone who came up with that and to put the makeup together because it was so great.
Yeah, look, honestly, that ended up being such a moment, and for Hangman to now have two of those, because the moment of him, the madly revealing himself as the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is such a Dynamite classic moment, and to now have a second one of basically going from Tony Schiavone to Hangman Adam Page, right? Just excellent. Everybody involved deserves props for that one because the camera work on it, the everything. It's such. When you have to think about everything that went into making that happen, all the way down to Hangman making his body look like Tony Schiavone.
Okay. So I want to talk about this a little bit because I was backstage and I saw this. So like, he got ready relatively early. So like we're arriving at the venue and you kind of just see Tony Schiavone off in the distance. You're like, huh. he's looking a little younger and a little more spry. Wonder what's going on. And then as you get closer, because Matt Schiavone used to work with us,
Uh-huh.
Tony Schiavone's son, and I'm like, is Matt Schiavone back today? What's going on? I'm not quite sure. And it's like the hair looked really good. Shout out to our makeup department for getting that wig like on perfectly. The beard was awesome. And then they ended up stuffing his shirt and his pants just to kind of like make the proportions a little bit more accurate. Um, Early in the day, just kind of like to peek behind the curtain, they had a prosthetic nose on him that was like not quite right. So like as you're looking at it going, is that Tony Schiavone? What's going on here? I don't quite know. But then I think switching it to the Phantom of the Opera mask just kind of helped like really kind of solidify everything that was going on with that. Like having actual Tony Schiavone wearing that and then pretend Tony Schiavone come out with
Yeah.
that later, I think definitely just helped kind of add another layer of surprise when the reveal actually happened. But yeah, looking at Tony Schiavone and hearing Hangman's voice was like just the weirdest thing. It's like a completely out of body experience. It was a very weird day.
Well, I will say, like, I think Tony Schiavone, he is. I think, you know, one of the things I really appreciate about what AEW's been able to do is I've always been a big Tony Schiavone guy, right? Like
Who
I've
hasn't?
always felt like Tony Schiavone didn't truly get his due. Basically just due to the fact that, you know, WCW went under the way it did and at the time period it did, and for him to get to come back in 2019 and be a part of AEW. But what I love so much about that is like Tony Schiavone's one of the greatest, like just genuinely one of the kindest men you could possibly know. And
Tony Schiavone is one of those people where if someone says they don't like Tony Schiavone, it's a red flag on them.
yes, and you know, like, and he's genuinely funny. And I
Yes.
think that
Oh my God.
I think that what's great about the last few years for Tony Schiavone is how iconic and recognizable he is, to the point of where somebody could dress up as Tony Schiavone, and it's like Tony Schiavone's voice is iconic enough, his look is iconic enough, you know who Tony Schiavone is, and it's something that you could pull off, whereas there aren't a whole lot of other people you could really do that with. It had to be Tony Schiavone, and that's what made it so good. That's what made it work as well as it did, and it was such a moment. I was blown away.
I do want to shout out to our AEW Heels community. Every October, our virtual event has sort of like a spooky themed guest. This year we had Julia Hart, but then we always encourage people, like it's not required, but heavily encouraged to sort of dress up in costume on these calls. So like we're all sitting in our living rooms across like 8 different countries, dressed up as, you know, whatever the hell. But the amount of girls that dress up as AEW talent. Like we had one family dressed up she dressed up her kids as Tony Storm and Luther, and then she was dressed up as an award.
Oh, that's really good.
So it was great. Last year she dressed up as Amanda Huber and her kids were Nolan and Brody. Which was very good. But speaking of Tony Schiavone, my favorite was this one of our members, Jillian, who dressed up as Tony Schiavone. And she had like the pink hat, the tie, the jacket, had the AEW logo. She had a little headset. And then you know how you can change your background and whatnot? She had like the AEW step and repeat. And it was like, oh my God, this is phenomenal. I took a screenshot of it. I sent it to Tony. I was like, I just need you to know that people friggin' love you and are dressing up as you as Halloween. And he's like, this is friggin' awesome.
Yeah, and then go figure.
Little did I know
that our AEW World Champion also do it. So,
right?
Yeah, no, it's a phenomenal moment. Like I said, hats off to everybody involved, because when you really think about every piece necessary to make that happen, down to, again, we're talking about the camera reveal, we're talking about the mic work, we're talking about the makeup, literally everything. And to do it live is it's special, it's magic, and that is the magic of professional wrestling, and that is the magic of what we get to do here at AEW. And we've still got a lot more to talk about here on this edition of AEW Unrestricted. Stay tuned. It's Will and Aubrey. We'll be back. AEW Unrestricted. It's Will Washington hosting the official podcast of All Elite Wrestling. And speaking of officials, also here is Aubrey Edwards. And
hi.
You know, talking about being an official.
Oh, we want to talk about this now, don't we?
Yes, we do. Because you're never supposed to put your hands on an official.
Never.
But I will say, it always pops me when it happens. And I want to ask because you took a shot from Marina Shafir. How you feeling?
I'm not going to show off my chest because it's not that kind of podcast. We've got ratings and whatnot, but it's kind of purple. It's she hit me real hard. Um, but kind of how we got there, and maybe you could argue that I put myself in harm's way, right? But the week before, we have John Moxley and Kyle O'Reilly, and they're wrestling. John Moxley is in an ankle lock. He's reaching for the ropes. He gets the ropes, can't quite get out of it, and then just punches Paul Turner in the face. Now, I have been very open on this podcast about the love that I have for this ref team, but with the quickness that we ran out to rescue our fearless leader, I can't remember a time I have been pissed off that much in my life. Like, I was like, what are you doing? Oh my God. Like, just furious at John Moxley that he would lay his hands on an official, right? So fast forward to Fright Night, and we're talking about ref assignments, and I'm looking at Paul going, there's no way you're going to be in that match, dude. The guy punched you in the face. Like, what are you doing? So we were kind of discussing it and saying, well, why don't we have me in that match? Because he's not going to punch a woman. This will be so much better. So look at me trying to be smart. And then all of a sudden, because the match ended on a count out, and I'm telling the timekeeper what's going on. Kyle O'Reilly comes in to argue with me because, of course, he wants like 5 more minutes. Just give him 5 more minutes. He's so close to beating John Moxley. And then out of the peripheral, just Marina Shafir pops in and just doink, like I go down like a sack of potatoes. Oh my God. Like it was not expected because I don't think I've taken a hit very often on AEW television. I got hit by Athena a number of years ago, and it took us a very long time to work through that, both emotionally and mentally as friends. So I feel like Marina and I are gonna not be on speaking terms for a while. I'm kind of pissed off, but that eventually led to the announcement of Blood and Guts, which is unreal because we had already announced Blood and Guts and the women doing Blood and Guts a couple weeks back. Jamie Hayter made that big announcement on Collision, and now we've got Orange Cassidy making a different kind of announcement, very, very reluctantly announcing that there's also going to be a men's Blood and Guts, which is I'm very excited.
Yeah, it's very interesting that the conglomeration versus the Death Riders, and this is going to be a very, very different Blood and Guts in the sense that the amount of people competing in Blood and Guts for the first time this time around is like no other, right? Like we've got obviously we talked about Orange Cassidy and Kyle O'Reilly and Mark Briscoe, but then we got Roderick Strong also there, and then of course the conglomeration is going to be teaming with Darby Allin to take on John Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, Wheeler Yuta, Daniel Garcia, Pac, and like thinking about, we saw Mark Briscoe in Blood and Guts last year, but we have never seen Orange Cassidy in this environment. We've never seen Kyle O'Reilly in this environment. We never see Roderick Strong in this environment. Darby has been familiar with Blood and Guts also. John Moxley's very familiar with Blood and Guts multiple times. Probably the most experienced Blood and Guts competitor alongside Claudio, who's also been in there before. It's interesting to think about the fact that we once saw, we saw the JAS versus the BCC, but Daniel Garcia is now on the other side of of that equation, and so this is such an exciting lineup. And thinking about like last year's Blood and Guts, I think was probably the best one we had done, and how just off the charts that crowd was, and now to get to do this again.
I have said before, probably on this podcast, I've said it somewhere, that back in 2023, when it was the Golden Elite versus Blackpool Combat Club, I strategically scheduled a surgery for that same week so I would not have to do Blood and Guts, because it is quite literally one of the most difficult matches that we do, trying to kind of manage the production aspects of live television with 2 cages and that many people, but also just the gravity of it, right? Like, we are very fortunate to have a roster filled with people that want to put their best foot forward every week. Like AEW is where the best wrestle, and there's a reason we say that. But when you put them in a setting like Blood and Guts and tell them this is the most violent match we do here, like they're gonna step it up. So yeah, I was totally fine watching that match on my couch and some painkillers, but excited to be back.
I mean, look, the 2023, I have a lot of memories from that show. That was, don't tell me, Boston? Was that Boston, Massachusetts?
It was Boston.
Yep.
It was Boston because I was supposed to go to Cake the night before and I had to sell my tickets.
It was the TD Garden.
Yes.
And that was AEW's first time running the TD Garden. And it was, so in general, it was just really cool to get to do that and be a part of that. Peeling back the curtain a little bit creatively. And I don't think I will tell the rest of this story, but I will say, one of the most prolific feuds AEW has ever had was the Swerve Hangman feud. Creatively, it was born that night.
Really?
July 19th, 2023, Boston, Massachusetts was where that feud was created. And it's just funny that, talking about how far we think ahead sometimes, it didn't actually begin on TV till September. And so that's how
you're sort of like planting the seeds a little bit early, but then by the time that the fans actually realize what's happening, it's like, oh brother, we've been on this journey for quite a while.
Exactly. So yeah, that was it was a special night, and of course I'm thinking about Kota Ibushi and Kenny Omega and the glass and everything that happened in that night. But again, like I said, we've had some great blood and guts moments in the history of AEW, and to now get to do it one more time next week in
technically
Greensboro.
Twice, right? Like we're doing the men and the women.
The men and the women. So, talking about, we were talking about, this being the first time for a lot of guys in blood and guts. For the women, this is the first time in general. And of course, Jamie Hayter throwing out that challenge on Collision a few weeks ago. This is something that fans have been asking for a very, very, very long time.
Yes. Which to that, if there's something you want to see on TV, talk about it on social media, because that's like, people always ask me, like, how do I get AEW in my town? How do we get a pay-per-view here? How do we get women's tag belts? It's like, watch the show, interact, support the people you like, and talk about it, because like AEW is for the fans. Like we're constantly trying to figure out how we can like please our audience, because they're the ones that allow us to put food on our table by doing this crazy friggin' job, right? So thanks to everyone who spoke up and wanted to have a women's blood and guts, because honestly, a lot of us backstage wanted to have it too. So it's really, really cool to kind of be at this point.
Yeah, honestly, think about AEW's existence and the fact that, again, it's something that fans were calling for. It's something that fans were demanding, and to have this moment for the women's roster, I think is really cool. I think it's going to be something special. You want to be there to see it. AEWTix.com. Be there, be a part of Blood and Guts. I think we've had some incredible memories inside the Greensboro Coliseum.
Yes.
And to now get to do this one more time. What is it now? It's the First Horizon Coliseum. It's still
First Horizon Coliseum.
Sorry,
we know what it is.
I called it by its old name. It is in Greensboro, North Carolina, but the First Horizon Coliseum. We are going to be there, and we've had some great moments there. We saw Sting retire in that building.
Saw Darby Allin fall off a ladder and cut up his back in that building. So, that building already knows violence.
Yes, that building absolutely knows violence. But we've seen some cool Dynamite moments there, too. We've seen some cool Collision moments. And to think about now making more history inside that building, I think is going to be an incredible time. And I want you all to be there. I want you all to check this out. We've still got.
I'm excited to see whose blood is on my shirt at the end of the night.
Yes. And we've still got much more to talk about here on AEW Unrestricted. Stay tuned. It's Will and Aubrey. We'll be back.
AEW Unrestricted, Aubrey and Will, and we are shooting the shit. We're talking about all the fun things that have happened on AEW recently because there's a hell of a lot. We're coming up on Full Gear. We just had Fright Night, but also outside of the ring, we've got some fun stuff happening. This episode, if you're listening to it when it drops, it's been about 2 days since the new AEW book has come out. This book is All Elite. By Keith Elliott Greenberg and All Elite Wrestling. We had Keith Elliott Greenberg on a number of months ago to talk about the production of the book. And we kind of had to keep a lot of it like close to the chest because we didn't want to spoil it. But it's out now. You can buy it. You can buy it. Oh my God. And it's so pretty. It's so pretty. I think people weren't really expecting what to do. I literally just turned to a page with like Jay and Silent Bob on it. Like
no,
like
honestly,
oh my God.
There are pictures in this book that you've likely never seen before. Some incredible moments, some incredible pieces of AEW history.
Look at this Dean Malenko picture. Hold on. Oh my God. I'm just sitting there like, oh my God, which is like a lot of just the backstage stuff that like you would never ever see. There's a whole section on Brody Lee. There's like just amazing absolute photos. Like we already know our photographers are great because like we literally see all of their work on these trading cards that Upper Deck sends us all the time. But to see a book that truly captures like the history of AEW, because this really kind of covers like the first 5 years. Yeah. And there's like so much stuff. Like we kind of glaze over the pandemic era a lot when we're talking about it because it's so far away now, but that was such like a huge part of like what we were doing, right? Oh man, I love this one. I just turned to this. So this is Jon Moxley, all bloody as we normally see him. But then in the back you got Topher, who's like one of the most important parts of AEW backstage. Like there's very few people that when someone says something like Topher's like, hey, you need to be here. Like look, without question, you listen to him. Like Topher is so freaking great.
Yeah, no, honestly, what's interesting here too is that, we got to contribute to this book in a lot of ways. And, I got to do a lot of the interviews for this book. And
the acknowledgements.
Yeah. Same, actually. There it is right there.
Yeah, there's a bunch of shout outs to our photographers. We got Ricky, we got Scott, Ryan, Speedy, Dakota, Lee South, Brainbuster. Like there's so many incredible photos featured in this book and it's out now. You could buy it.
Well, what was great about doing those interviews is that, and it was one of the ways Linda had kind of put it to me when she listened to them, was that she was like, it was a bunch of little podcasts. It was a bunch of like, little editions of this show, effectively, where I got to ask kind of everybody about. I literally would just take my phone and open up the recording app and then just set it in front of me and we just have conversations. And to see a lot of these quotes as I was going through the book the other day and remembering where we were sitting, where this conversation came up, where I was sitting with Chris Harrington and hearing exactly what he had to say about the start of AEW. And of course, the most important piece of it, hearing Tony's story and how Tony Khan, how it all came together. There's a lot of, it's really interesting because when you think about All Elite Wrestling and you think about how there's been various versions of the origin of AEW told. And, I have personally gotten to hear them all. And what's kind of cool is that we got to hear them all in a way that we can put together a proper account of where AEW came from. There's a great picture of Chris Statlander with the TBS title.
Look at that. Look at that.
So our current AEW Women's World Champion.
I know, right? To think like where she came from. So Chris Statler was one of the ones that I interviewed for this book. And I particularly remember, if you're watching the video versions, this is my podcast recorder that I use to record everything kind of externally. And I literally brought this with us and we're recording in the bowl at whatever show we were at. And then they started doing an audio test and like blaring Metallica over the speakers just to like test it. We're like, crap, we got to run somewhere else. And just all of these little moments that I completely forgot because it's been forever since we first started working on this, that like by the time we were talking about the book, I'd forgotten that we had worked on it, that you had interviewed me. And like,
that's right. I interviewed you.
Like I'm crying in the interview because it's like so happy and like there's all these memories and stuff happening. So
I was remembering our conversation as I was coming across the quotes about the original Double or Nothing and you not really being like certain at first, and then like that whole story that you got to tell, and it's all
Hmm.
in this book. You definitely
Yep.
want to make sure it's available. So many different places where you get your books, but you want to make sure you check out this book. Is All Elite, the inside story of All Elite Wrestling. Again, just so many cool photos that a lot of never before seen photos.
I love this quote from Darby Allin. I told him, Sting, you only get to have one retirement match and we have to kill it. He smiled and said, let's take the chains off. Like fun little backstage things like that, right? Like we try to share a lot of that on this podcast, but there's only so much time that we have and there's only so many stories we can tell. So if you're oh my god. Oh, I just turned to a page with the Briscoes.
Yep, I was just on that
Oh my
page.
god. Oh,
So
how
some
incredible.
Yep. We definitely get to talk about and acknowledge Jay Briscoe in here. Um,
There's a lot about Brody Lee. Like, it's just crazy to think how far we've come in 6 years and all
yeah.
of the history that we've had together. And
And like a lot of the history of AEW, like
right.
we don't leave anybody out. You know, Cody Rhodes is mentioned a lot in here, and
Mhm.
this is the story of All Elite Wrestling. That's
It was a
not.
critical part. Like, yeah.
And again, cool pictures of everybody who's been a part of AEW's history. Definitely, if you get a chance, we've got the holiday season coming up. I guarantee you, if there's a wrestling fan in your life, and if particularly there's an AEW fan in your life,
Yes.
or just somebody that you want to kind of introduce the story of AEW to. Literally, I was trying to explain what I do to somebody who didn't
Now
really
you could just
understand.
carry this book around and give it to him. Like, here's what I do.
Yeah, that was basically it. It was like they were at my house and they're like, "So, what are you up to these days?" And I was like, "I work for AEW." And then it's like, if you really want to know our story, like it's a great like coffee table book. It's a great
I was gonna
just
say it's a good coffee table book because
it
it's like
is.
it's just you don't even have to like read the quotes. You can just thumb through and look at the pictures, and the pictures say themselves 1,000 words. I know that's a cliche and whatnot, but like literally just chatting with Julia Hart recently, and there's like this incredible picture of her after she's joined House of Black. But like she used to be a cheerleader because she was a national champion cheerleader, and that was just the general progression into wrestling. And now it's like I can't even remember that version of Julia Hart. So, oh man, this is so great. Check it out, pick it up if you're an AEW fan, or as Will said, holiday season's coming up, and it's a great gift for any wrestling fan in your life because learning how a wrestling company comes together is such an incredible thing. And I think if all of us who appreciate wrestling, I just appreciate the time and care that was put into this by everyone involved, by you yourself, but also by, Keith Elliott Greenberg. Linda helped out a huge with this. Our VP of marketing, Linda Laludis, she was a huge part in driving this. So
Yep.
this
And
is
Adam
this is freaking
Hopkins too.
awesome.
Like he was
Adam
a big
Hopkins,
piece of it.
yes.
Yeah. Like there was so much involvement from everybody behind the scenes, and then Keith Elliott Greenberg, who's we had him on the show, but this was in his wheelhouse so much, and for him to get to be the one to put it all together and put his kind of stamp of approval on All Elite Wrestling, I think means a lot. It means a lot to the history of AEW, and this is a piece of history. So grab this book, get a chance.
Oh, so good. So good. There's so many awesome things that have happened at AEW that we're still experiencing. Like, it's weird to think that we're like only 6 years in, like we're still a baby. We're in like first grade now at this point, but like
But on the
the,
other side of that, when you talk to somebody like my son, right, and he is
Mhm.
11 years old, AEW
Yeah.
has been around over half his life. His wrestling experience and existence, he doesn't know a world without AEW. And then like same
Right?
with like his friends and
Alternative
stuff.
doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's not the alternative to him. It's just like to him, this is what professional wrestling is. That there are these companies that exist, and it's like when you think about when I was a kid, and there's certain eras. But then it's like you look back and it's like that era was only like 4 years long, right?
Mhm.
But it's something that we look back on fondly. And so when I talk to a lot of like younger AEW fans, and I do kind of understand that 6 years for me in my late 30s here is like a blip. But when AEW for you came about in your teen years and now you're in your 20s, like that's a big chunk of your life. So I do understand when I talk to certain fans how much AEW has meant to them and how big of a part of their lives it's been.
It's also just changed wrestling for a lot of people. I mean, like, I don't want to like put myself over at all, but like I did an indie show recently and both the girls, both the other lady refs on that show got into wrestling, into reffing because they saw me on TV.
Oh, give yourself all the credit.
Thank you,
if you won't, I will. If you won't, I will, because you absolutely deserve that. And like,
right. But then having like, and just thinking about it, and I was talking to Tony Khan about it this week, like having a boss that understands like how big wrestling actually is and allowing us the opportunities to work at like other companies. Like I've done a lot of work with CMLL recently, but then being able to do indies, like on that same independent show, which Athena ran, by the way, we also had world champion Chris Statlander, and then we also had Nyla Rose on it. Like we had a bunch of people from our locker room. So that's knowledge that's being shared. That's a way to get more fans interested in wrestling. That's more fans who can support the independents. Athena's doing a great job with MPX down in Dallas. So it's just one of those things where it's like we get the opportunity to not only change our own lives, but we get the opportunity to change and impact wrestling for the better. And that's, I think, probably my favorite part about working here is that like I feel like we are leaving wrestling better than we found it. And we found it in an amazing place where it gave us all these amazing opportunities, and it's only getting better.
It is. And
right.
I honestly, there's no better note to go out than that. That's such an excellent mic drop. So all I'll say here is that AEW Unrestricted is sponsored in part by Upper Deck, and you can collect your favorite wrestlers in 2025 Upper Deck AEW and start your trading card collection today. Unwrap autograph, memorabilia, or premium tech inserts. Visit upperdeck.com to learn more. And you can listen to and follow this podcast, AEW Unrestricted, at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Apple, yes. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. And check out the video episodes on our YouTube channel at AEW Unrestricted and hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you're not an AEW insider, become one. Get early access to ticket pre-sales, special merchandise offers, and more straight to your inbox. Sign up today at AEWTix.com. And don't forget, AEW Dynamite is on TBS every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern and streaming on HBO Max. AEW Collision is live every Saturday on TNT and also streaming on HBO Max. ROH streams on Thursdays on Honor Club. Otherwise, folks, I'm Will Washington. She is Aubrey Edwards. We'll see you next time. Have a great day. Peace.
I'm going to go read this book now. Bye, everybody.